Hello, good morning. Can you hear me? Am I loud and clear?
Yes,
Yes,
we can
doctor.
hear.
Very good. Okay, so I
Yes.
today morning. This morning I sent you your assignment. Have you received them? Your email?
Yes,
Did you
doctor, but
receive?
we need some clarification,
All
please.
right. That's why I give you this morning because I know that you're going to ask question. Okay, the deadline will be December 10. All right. So shall we begin? We'll start with your clarification. Yes. What is your clarification? Is it Sharifa or is it Halima? What is your clarification? You can actually ask now before I'm going to start the class. Basically, it's a reading, so you have to read and you have to write something about that. So I choose the topic carefully and the article carefully. It has something to do with your program, the RNBS into BSN, and at the same time, online learning also it's there. So I believe it's actually timely that at least when you graduate, you have read something, an article. Now, I really would like you to read that article so that it will become a habit for you. Okay. So the format of the assignment is there. The guidelines are there. All you have to do is to follow the format. Make it simple. I give you an example of how to review also. Very basic, no?
Okay.
So, Iman, do you understand now? No? Everybody understood,
Yes,
right? So it's very
yes,
basic.
yes.
If you're going to look at the assignment, it's self-explanatory, self-explaining, you know. I give you an example there. I give you also the article that you have to read. So basically, you can actually follow that, or you may also adapt your own style. No, I don't mind as long as you read that article and you write something about that article. You have basically 3 months to do it. So that's why it's December 10. The deadline is December 10.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, okay,
So at least
okay.
you read one page a day. That will be good. No, that will be enough. Yeah. Moving forward. Let's proceed now. Let's proceed now with your lecture. I believe we start with Aristotle, right? So if you can actually see my slide right now, our last meeting was on September 9. So by the way, I also uploaded the material. You can click the link and you can download all the materials, including the book. So it's there. For the TBL, by the way, we are still clarifying it if we're going to pursue that or change the TBL into something else. I will let you know as long as it will be clarified. No. So moving forward, let's proceed with after Aristotle's systematic theory of logic. By the way, is one is very responsible to in the adaptation and the proposal of realism. This is opposite of idealism. So to review, idealism accordingly is actually coming from the work of the triumvirate philosophers. No, we have Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato. So where the thing that was emphasized in idealism is that the truth is confined in the world of ideas. So therefore, all the truth will be ideas. Therefore, if you're going to utilize the Aristotle philosophy in the classroom, you are going to engage in a dialogue using dialectic method. Okay, so dialogue with your student where ideas are generated. I think that will be a very good way to teach our students, to teach our patients also. You engage in dialogue where you respect the student's idea and you do not impose your idea. Eventually, you can actually come up with a consensus. So the most important and the most pressing thing that we can actually observe in idealism is that you generate ideas through dialectic method and dialogue. There is another one, of course, that's completely opposite with idealism. It was proposed by Aristotle himself, where all the truth that can actually be seen around us could be explained logically. So, in short, he really proposed logic. That's why he discussed about syllogism. Okay, so that's how, and that's what we know about Aristotle's systematic theory. So the word of truth is actually based on the reality, the existence of nature. All right, that's actually the basic contention and explained about. He came out with the term syllogism, where we are going to explain the word of matter in terms of logical explanation. So in logical explanation, as you mentioned, there would always be premises, no? The major premise, the minor premise, and at the same time the conclusion. So it's a cause and effect. Basically, it's just like that. Now, what are the concerns of philosopher in realism? Okay, so there are two questions that they actually use in order to come up with a philosophy of realism. What is the good life, and at the same time, what is the importance of reason? These two will actually jive together, no? How are you going to define life? It is actually the accumulation of things that you can see around you. How do you define success? And at the same time, what is the reason of your existence? So you try to find meaning in what you're going to do. So basically, when you're going to teach your students, you let the students find meaning with what they are doing. It should be meaningful experience, no? That's what we are actually going to do. We look for reason on everything that we do. That is what we have in the world of realism, no? And of course, accordingly, in relation to the definition of what's good life, Aristotle actually mentioned about moderation in all things. Of course, we can acquire money, we can acquire wealth, but we have to moderate that, or else we can actually have what we call as greed, no? So you have to balance your own life, no? The reason is that the instrument, it will actually help you to achieve balance and moderation. Your reasons, your logical reasoning, your critical thinking will help you to balance, no, your life and to moderate your life. Shall I need this? Shall I need that? In the classroom, shall I teach this? Shall I teach this? Shall I teach that? No. Uh, if you're going to teach a student, like for instance, no, you're very conscientious about what you're going to teach. You like what you're going to teach. Like for instance, diabetes mellitus, no? If you do not moderate what you're going to teach in diabetes mellitus, you cannot actually finish in one day or maybe 1 year, because diabetes mellitus concept is very wide, very broad, right? You have to moderate it. You have to make it sure that what you're going to include will be the thing that will be needed by the students. You do not teach everything. In terms of personal experience, also, it's just like moderating what we want in life. Now, how do we do that? We are going to make rationally. We're going to make logical reasoning on what our choices will be. So we deeply apply this in the concept of nursing also, no? You are familiar with rationale, no? In every problem that we are discovering from our experience with the patient, we are doing nursing intervention. And this nursing intervention must always be based on reason. There must be reason on why you are doing that specific thing. No, that is actually what we have. No, in realism, these are the people who influence a lot, particularly the modern and contemporary realists. No, we have the new Thomism. You from the philosophy of Sir Thomas Aquinas. No, Aquinas affected the synthesis of pagan ideas and Christian beliefs. He actually married them together. He joined them together, right? Because during the time there was a prevalent belief about paganism. There was no God, and people were, let's say, they have a strong belief with other things except God. No, they are different gods. So he married the concept of paganism with Christian belief, no? Through reason. So he could actually have found reason about the belief of the pagans and at the same time Christian belief. After all, the belief system may not actually be strange from science. There could be explanation about everything. So therefore, God could be understood through reasoning based on the material world. That is the contention of Thomas Aquinas. There should be no conflict between science and religion. No, he tried to explain the pagan belief. Then later on, he tried to reason with them until such time that these pagans were converted. I'll give you an example. Why is it that there is no conflict between science and religion? So in our Bible, in the story of creation, God created the universe in 7 days. Actually, on the seventh day he rested. So basically, he created only in 6 days. If we're going to come to think of it, the universe is estimated to have at least more or less around 6 billion years, right? During that time, there was no concept of the calendar. It was only lately that we have the concept of calendar, you see. That's why the calendar that we are using today is otherwise known as Gregorian calendar from Pope Gregory. It's coming from uh, Papal influence, Roman influence. You see? So basically, a day could be attributed to 1 billion year. So that could be explained, no? So therefore, the basic contention of Thomas Aquinas is that science and religion could actually be not strange with one another. They could actually, let's say, explain one another, supplement one another. Okay? So that's what we have. The thing is, when we are going to adapt this theory and philosophy to our students, we let students reason out. And we are going to give reason on what we are teaching them so that the students will actually have a strong grasp on what we are actually telling them. That's the point. Now, accordingly, based on the ideas of realists, the word of faith with the word of reason, so this is the thing that we have in contemporary Catholic schools. I am for sure also, the belief that we have is not strange with Islam. The faith is actually confined with reason. We can therefore explain why we are believing so. The faith that we have could be explained. Okay, moving forward. So here are the concept of modern realism. Now from Renaissance, we have Francis Bacon, who developed what we call as inductive reasoning. And also he developed scientific method. He attempted to explain everything. So we need to make it sure that this explanation must be explained, must be contextualized. So we have to look into, let's say, the direction, the explanation of the things that we can observe around us based on the ideas of Aristotle. No, he developed a method starting with observations, then after that, generalization, then testing, and later on verification. Basically, these are the steps that we have in scientific method. So he developed ways to explain things around them. That's the reason why we were going to look at the things that are existing around us, the world of nature, the nature around us, all the things that we can see, all the things that we can touch, all the things that we can perceive can be explained. That is the basic idea of modern realists. How to explain that? You have to utilize inductive reasoning. You have to utilize scientific method. How are you going to do that? Basically, you're going to observe, you're going to generalize, and you're going to test your specific ideas. Then after that, you verify. We apply this in every science concepts that we utilize in our everyday lives. Like in the case of nursing practice, we have to apply this. No? What do? We have a problem, so we observe the patient. Then we generalize. Then after that, we apply nursing intervention. Then we verify if our idea would be correct. If our idea would not be correct, then we have to change it and come with other things. So that's why it's very necessary for us to reason out on all the things that we see around us. Things that we perceive could be reasoned out. There should be reasons and rationale of the things that we observe around us. Right? There is another very important philosopher who advocated realism. we have John Locke. John Locke mentioned about tabula rasa, where our understanding of the universe would actually be based on experiences. Basically, we are born with blank brain, with blank mind. In short, nothing is inside. What are we going to do? What are we going to supply to individuals' experiences so that later on they have something to utilize? So this is actually very important. If you're going to buy a computer, for instance, if you're going to buy a new iPad, for instance, nothing is in there. It is actually dysfunction, malfunctioning, or it will not function not unless you're going to install what is supposed to be installed. The same thing with the brain. The brain, as a blank tablet or tabula rasa, must always be supplied with experiences so that these experiences eventually will be utilized to reason out. No? So we collect data from our five senses. Then after which we utilize this data in order to reason out on the experience that we have with nature, the world around us. Moving forward, uh, the contemporary realists tend to focus on philosophy and science. They are trying to find explanation about everything. This is the basic idea that we have here. Explanation about everything. In fact, we adapt this. If you're going to have your husband or sometimes wife, they have to explain about why is it that they did that, why is it that they did, including your children, no? Why is it that they did that, they did this, they did that, no? Why is it so? So you really would like to find explanation on everything. In that case, you are a realist, no? Because a modern realist, if you are really a realist, you try to find explanation about everything. In short, you're going to be very curious. A moving car, for instance. I do not know if you have experienced this already. When you're going to have a moving car, you tend to explain why is it the car is moving. If you're watching a television, you tend to explain why is it that human beings are inside the television. And after that, after looking for explanation, you try to look into patterns. So this is very important because looking into patterns would establish scientific knowledge, particularly in the world of physics, chemistry, and importantly, mathematics. Accordingly, in the world of realism, mathematics is the thing that is actually constant. Everything is changeable. All right. So we have Bertrand Russell and Whitehead also here. No. So they actually wrote the book Principia Mathematica, right? Here, they discuss about the importance of the mathematical explanation of the universe. They were able to find the universal patterns that could be verified and classified through mathematics. We have so many theorems. As of now, we are actually using Pythagorean theorem. A square equals b, c square equals b, a square plus b square. As of now, also we have the basic pattern that we have in explaining why is it that the apple fruit would fall down, the universal theory of gravitation. We have also one mathematical formula that is in the world of physics that is actually expounded by Albert Einstein. Energy cannot be destroyed. Energy can be transformed from one form to another. That is E equals mc squared. That is actually the basic formula that they adopted when they invented the atomic bomb that destroyed Nagasaki and Hiroshima. You see, in World War II. All right. Now, what are the goals of education for realists? No? So when we are going to teach, we have to emphasize the notion of good life. We're going to emphasize the truth. We are going to emphasize the beauty of nature that could be answered through the study of ideas. If you are going to look on nature, there are patterns of what we see, on what we perceive, no? Using, of course, the dialectic method. This is the favorite method that's used by philosophers. You see, medieval philosophers, contemporary philosophers also, and the philosophers who belong to Renaissance. No? Now, for contemporary realists, the goal of education is to help your students to understand and apply the principles of science to help solve the problems plaguing the modern world. Now, basically, you could apply that with your own education, no? When you are tackling about medical, surgical, nursing, you try to find an explanation of the problem that you could actually have. Why is it that a person who displays fever could actually have infection? So you have to look into the relationship between fever and infection. In psychiatry, also, you have to look into human experience with the formation of abnormal behaviors. So we have to look into the relationship of things. We have to look into patterns. That's why you were taught to look into the patterns. You have to look into the universal patterns of all the things that you observe. That's why in psychiatry we have diagnostic statistical manual. So we have to observe the pattern and find out if this pattern actually belongs to this particular diagnostic criteria. In medical surgical nursing, less experience that you may actually have, you look into patterns. Why is this that these symptoms could be classified under this disease? See, you have to look into specific symptoms of the disease that you have in mind. Then you have to explain. The only thing that you can actually do as nurse would actually to explain. Then later on, you can find an intervention on the things that you found out. Let's say, for instance, what could be the cause of fever? Infection. So you could not actually let the high temperature vanish if you do not treat the cause. So therefore, even though you're going to give a lot of paracetamol, the infection and the high fever or the fever will not go away. You have to treat the person or give antibiotics to the person so that you could actually look into the cause, eliminate the cause, so that you can actually eliminate the symptom. That's actually the meaning of this when we are going to teach our students. Now, importantly, if you're going to apply or teach your patients in the same way, patients should know what they are going to do. Like, for instance, there is a take-home medication. You should explain why is it that they have to take the medicine in specified period of time, let's say 3 times a day. You should know how to explain why is it the patient would take that at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 1 o'clock at noontime, and at 6 o'clock in the evening. You have to give reason. You have to explain so that the patient may not actually be confused. Maybe if you could not explain that, maybe the patient may actually take the 3 tablets in one go. Another one, why is it that you are giving medication or taking medications in the evening only? Why is not in the morning? At least you take once a day. You see, these are the things that you can inculcate on the education of our students. That is the basic notion of realism, you see. We have to give reasons on all the things that we are teaching our students. We have to explain what is actually happening in the world that we live, in the world that your students are living. So they should know the truth. That is actually the main idea that we have here. Okay? What is actually the good notion of good life? Basically, it's finding explanation of the things that you can find around you. This is the meaning of a good life, according to modern realists. Right? Now, teachers should be steeped in the basic academic discipline. What do you mean by this? Teachers must be well-rounded. If you're going to be teaching in nursing, you have to know other areas also. You see? Because you are not just going to teach about the discipline of nursing, you have to teach life. Basically, holistic in nature. You should know about humanity, you should know about literature, you should know about mathematics, you should know at least something so that you could utilize this knowledge of things around you to teach what you need to teach to your students. Now, come to think of it, if you are just a nurse without knowledge on things around you, let's say literature, maybe teaching for you will be boring, and I'm sure you cannot teach properly. No? Because you need to integrate human experience. In teaching, I'm going to discuss to you later what we call as vertical integration and horizontal integration. We have to associate all the things around us with the thing, the one that or the concept that we would like to teach our students. All right? Any question? No? So always take note of this. You need to give reason, generate reason or explanation of the things that your students need to learn. No, basically it's just like that. No, that is what we have in the philosophy of realism. Any question? Shall we move? No?
Yes.
Another very important philosophy that we have is pragmatism. No, this is actually very important in the society. You see, it's based on what is needed. It is based on utilitarianism, based on the necessity of the society. What is the meaning of education in that case? Education is needed in order to help people become good citizens. You see? And this is actually coming from American philosopher in the 19th century. No, these are the people who contextualize pragmatism. Because pragmatism, if you're going to see the time of John Dewey, the time of William James, the time of Pierce, it was actually a heavy, there was heavy industrialization in the Western world, particularly the United States and in Europe. Modern industries were actually coming up. So they were trying to find reason on what they are doing. They're trying to find the meaning of what they're doing. You see, they're trying to look into the purpose of everything that they do. That is the meaning of pragmatism, no? Accordingly, in the context of pragmatists, they mention about by the fruits you shall know them. See, tell me who you are, and I'll tell you your parent. Tell me who your parents are, and I tell you who you are. No, pragmatists encourages people to find process that work in order to achieve their desired ends. No, action oriented all the time and experientially grounded. They just do what is actually needed. They are always taught to do things accordingly. No, they're actually taught how to act accordingly. Moving forward, there is another modern pragmatist that we know of, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. No, he mentioned about the importance of nature. He actually mentioned about experience. He mentioned about environment. No, and here the modern pragmatist would always emphasize the importance of equality. You see, because before pragmatists came over, the very important person in the society would be male. What about the others? You see, look at this. There was a bias before. Women were seen to be less important because they are not contributing in the society as the deemed. They are not contributing in industrialization. They tend to work at home. Therefore, women are less important than men. That's why the modern pragmatists actually did not like that. That's why Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote a very important book called Emile. This is a satirical explanation or story about women, no? They have very little regard. So here in Emile, no, this person, the heroine, the hero in the novel has little regard for the education of women because they found that women are less important, right? Other than becoming a companion only of a man. So you see, if you're going to apply that in the context of the real world, I think women will complain. I think women will rebel because women are not seen as important as men. In our society, it will not be like that. In modern pragmatism, men and women must be equal. We have to look into the importance of this. Everyone has a duty to do. That is the main idea of pragmatism. Every person has a duty to do. Like in the case of ancient Greece that I mentioned to you before. This is very important in the context of John Dewey, no? Because in the ancient Greece, the philosopher king, the wise king, must make it sure that every individual will have to do their part. The people or the person who would rule must be educated, must be knowledgeable, and there are a group of people who would actually do the support system. So that's the reason why in the ancient Greece we have the division of the house. The Athenians who were engaged in philosophizing, who were engaged in intellectualizing, and the Spartans who were acting like soldiers. Applying that in the modern community, not all women can become nurses. Not all people can become king. Not all people can become teachers. Not all people can become managers. What do you think will happen in the restaurant if all the people in the restaurant would be acting like managers? Would there be somebody who would be serving you? Of course, no one. You see? Every single individual in pragmatism is very important. We have to look into the thing that they are capable to do. They have to do the role. So that's why Jean-Jacques Rousseau is very famous in this. He portrayed the wrong concept in the industrialization in the early 19th century. When 19th century here. This is the century going to 19th century. That is from 1800 to 1899. So there is heavy industrialization in the world. So people who would actually work in the big industries would be men only. And what about women? They just stayed home. And of course, Jean-Jacques Rousseau did not like that. No? So he wrote a book called Emile, where Emile served only as the companion. And women would only serve as the companion of man. And that is not good, no? Moving forward, I will discuss with you the philosophy, the importance of the philosophy of John Dewey. No? In John Dewey, every single citizen must be educated because they need to contribute in the society. They need to contribute in social reform. That is the purpose of education. We have to solve the everyone's problem. We have to be involved in social reformation. See, the role of education is to educate individual to contribute in social reform. That means to say, when you educate an individual, we are making it sure that they are going to be useful citizens, that they are going to be contributing people in the society, right? Now, John Dewey is an intellectual heir to Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin he was the one who proposed the idea of the survival of the fittest, no? Where the only fit will survive. And he wrote the book called On the Theory of on Natural Selection. Okay, so there is a constant interaction between organisms and the environment. Every single organism is interacting with the environment. Environment includes us as people. as human beings. Organisms also involves us. So there will always be an interaction on all living things and non-living things. So we tend to be responsible, dynamic, and developing word. No, child-centered progressivism and social reconstruction. This is the basic idea here. We are going to teach every single individual how to become responsible. What are we doing now in our society? Applying that in the United Arab Emirates, for instance. You know, I'm always telling my students about them, about what we can observe in United Arab Emirates. Now, it's very important, you know, because in psychology, you see, there is always there is a big example of what we call as cross-cultural psychology, where people actually come here. We do not quarrel, but we learn how to coexist. Why? Because of the leaders. Now, what about social reform? Look at this. Every single person, I believe, that we have in United Arab Emirates would be taught the importance of education. They are sending women now to the universities, best universities. They would like them
Yes.
to be educated so that they can contribute in the society. Very basic discipline. If you're going to observe, you'll see now everybody would try to follow what the government would try to emphasize. COVID-19, you see, everybody is afraid,
Yes.
isn't it? Because there are a certain rules that are set by the society, and these are the things that we need to follow. So every person, therefore, is disciplined. That's social reform. You get the point. That is very important in pragmatism. You know, I come to believe that United Arab Emirates is a pragmatic society. That's why it becomes rich. See? So, because we are lived by good people also. That is actually the meaning of this. You see, if we are driving, we are always looking into obeying the traffic rules. Why? Because we learn from our leaders. That's the meaning of this, because it was emphasized that we have to follow the rules. That is what we are going to do when we are going to teach. We're going to help people to follow, to obey, and become useful part of the
And
society. That is the meaning of this. No? That's the importance of doing social reform. Therefore, men and women must always be equal. Every person actually is going to be seen as very important in the society. You are a gardener, you are a janitor, they are as important as the professors, the chief nurses, the doctors, the director of hospitals. That is the meaning. So there should always be the emphasis on equality among people. This is found in pragmatism. This is what we need to teach in pragmatism. Very important, no? Now, in pragmatism, instrumentalism and experimentalism are actually very important, no? Because we have to look into the pragmatic relationship between school and society, the importance of the school and society, and applying ideas of education to an experimental basis. We have to look into the relationship between the society and the school. In that way, the school is viewed as a very important part of the society. Imagine a society without school. You see, that is actually, if you're going to look at that, no, that's very sad, no? If you're going to find a society without school, because everybody must be educated. No, school plays very important role in the development of the society. So we have to look into this one all the time. The importance of the school in the society. No, all right. Uh, on John Dewey's philosophy, education starts with the needs and interests of the child. We cannot we cannot teach the child if they are not interested to learn. First, we have to look into the interest of the child. If you are interested in what you would like to learn, isn't it? No one will actually tell you what to do. No one will actually tell you what to read. You are a self-driven person. If you like to learn management, you are self-driven. You would like to learn more. No? It will allow the person to participate in planning the course. All right? And so on and so forth. You see? In short, students will be responsible or co-responsible with their education. I'll give you an example. If you're very interested to learn about nursing, let's say to improve your career, to improve your profession, isn't it that it's very easy to come to school to attend your class because you love doing it? But if you are forced to learn, if you are forced to study, come to think of that, no, there will be a point where you break down. There will be a point when you are going to surrender. Therefore, you cannot force a child to learn if they do not want to learn. You have to find the basic interest. Now, this is the common thing that we are applying in our family lives. Now, for instance, we dictate on what the child will actually take in college. Imagine that. You tell your son, I would like you to become a doctor. And the child does not want it. The child would like to be a musician, would like to be an artist, maybe, or would like to be a teacher. And here you are trying to tell your son to become a doctor or to become a nurse. Is it? What do you think will happen if you're going to do that? And if your child will follow you? What do you think will happen to the
Will
child?
never gain anything.
Isn't it very good? The child will never gain anything. The child may drop out eventually in school, isn't it? The child may actually not study. So it's an exercise in futility. So you are going to, your main purpose right now here is to look into the needs and the interests of the child. Imagine this, you found their interests, you supported their interests. They receive the education that they need and that they require. What happens to them? They will become a gainful and useful people in the society. What happens if they become useful people in the society? They contribute into social reformation, isn't it? What
Yes.
about if they will not receive the education that they deserve? They will also contribute into social destruction, isn't it? They rebel, maybe. Imagine this, a child who was forced to study at the course that they didn't want, chances are they would rebel. Maybe you will actually find your child to be involved with friends, not good friends. Eventually, they would be using or exploring the use of drugs. So they become the liability of the society. The basic idea in those philosophy is to look into the single interest of the child that we have to recognize from the beginning. As parents, we have to do that also. You see? As teachers, you have to do that also. You have to be very supportive. That is the only thing that you can actually do. Eventually, they will find the purpose of why they are here. Not everybody will become doctors. Maybe your son is gifted to become the janitor, or maybe that your son is gifted to become a great artist, a great musician. So let him be. That is actually the meaning of the idea or the philosophy of John Dewey. No? Moving forward, we have to recognize that here children are active. They're organic beings, no? They need freedom and responsibility. If we're all there all the time, peeking into what they have, trying to influence, trying to intervene in what they need to do, what happens? They could not find freedom. They could not do things. And eventually, they would stop doing things that they love. But if you give them freedom, they learn to look into the responsibility. Eventually, they say, I can do this, I can do that. Eventually, they will think that they will become more useful if they gain this freedom, and of course, it must be coupled with responsibility. That means to say, you allow your children to study abroad, for instance. You let them you let them live on their own. They manage they manage their time, they manage everything. So what do you think will happen to them? Most probably they're going to plan on what's going to happen to them in the country where they're going to study. They will budget the money that they have, they will study, they will come to the class regularly. That is the meaning of this. If a person is given much freedom, it will be very useful if they view this freedom as a part of the society. So they are going to look into the responsibility as well. All right. Moving forward, ideas in John Lewis philosophy are not separate from social conditions. Philosophy has a responsibility to the society. Ideas have a responsibility to the society. Every single thing that you do, you have your responsibility to the society because you are part of the society. You are not alone. You are a member of the society. That's the importance of John Lewis philosophy. We are going to teach every single student, every single individual to become a good member of the society. Really? What happens to you if you are just actually getting education for the sake of your education? For the sake of yourself only, for the sake of self-aggrandizement. I think you will not be very useful and you will not be very happy. Now remember this in pragmatism, the concept of a good life. This is the thing that I'm telling you. What is a good life? Now we can answer the first question that we posed a while ago. A good life may not be accumulation of wealth, accumulation of money, because eventually wealth and money will actually be lost. You will die eventually. What is the notion of a good life? A good life may actually have this contention of freedom. You're free to do what you want, coupled with responsibility. Now, if you're going to do that, you will become an effective member of society. If you will become an effective member of the society, that will be good because you are going to be helpful in the society. An educated individual, a useful individual, an influencer of the society. You will become a useful person or member of the society. Every single individual is very important in the society because a society may not become a very good society if there is no individual, if there is no janitor, if there is no caretaker, if there is no driver, bus driver, if there is no cleaner, if there is no teaman. See, every single individual in John Lewis philosophy, particularly in pragmatic philosophy, would take the role, would be responsible, would be very, very important. That is the meaning of this. Right? Now, what is the role of the teacher in John Lewis philosophy? Philosophy of pragmatism. The teacher is not going to be an authoritarian type, but facilitator. Again, they're going to engage in modern dialogue, they suggest, but they do not demand that they will be followed. See, if you are a teacher who demands a respect from the class, you will not become a good teacher. You cannot influence the class. Like for instance, if you are a teacher, an authoritarian teacher, what happens is everything is actually by the rule. At 8 o'clock, you should be in the classroom. If you're late, the classroom is locked. No one enters. If you speak, there will be punishment. What happens to the class? You are training robots. Yeah? You are authoritarian, the students may not learn from you. You scold them every mistake that they could actually have or they could actually make. No? Here, in pragmatism, you will become a facilitator. What are you going to do? You encourage, you offer suggestion. As I keep on telling my students, there is no stupid student. All students are all intelligent. You have to find a way as a teacher to recognize that area of intelligence. You have to encourage them. You have to offer suggestion, not to impose things. You have to question and help plan the students. Plan with the course of your student. You are not there to impose. You are there to help. And of course, you can only do that if you have a very good command of various disciplines. That means to say you understand what you are teaching. From the beginning, I told you also, you cannot teach what you do not know. You cannot teach what you understand. Students will respect you if you do not impose. Students must be given freedom, but this freedom must be recognized by students. Therefore, they have to utilize the freedom much with responsibility. Okay? Now, what are the teaching methodology that we can actually use in this philosophy? Inquiry method, maybe problem solving. So most of the time, you allow the students to be on their own. You allow the students to study. You allow the students to seek the answer or the problem that you ask from them. All right? Any questions so far? We will end there. There is another philosophy, but I will discuss this next meeting. Existentialism and phenomenology. This is the last philosophy that I would like to discuss with you because other philosophies are actually not so useful, no? In terms of the philosophy of education, at least you understood some very important philosophical concepts that you may utilize in your practice, in your teaching practice. Okay? Now, I will end the lecture right now here. I will entertain questions. I will also ask you to clarify also. If you open already the email and look at your assignment, maybe you can clarify or you can ask questions pertaining to your assignment. All right? Okay. So, any questions so far?
Yes, Doctor, I have question.
Yes, good. What is your question, dear?
Hello, Doctor Perpetua.
Perpetua, yes.
Yes, Doctor. My question lies on the topic on syllogism.
Yes. Logic, yes.
Syllogism, you made mention of major premise and minor premise. I need you to throw more light on it.
All right. You know,
Thank
when
you.
you are going to make, yes, when you try to explain something, like for instance, I'll give you about the basic idea of 1 plus 1 equals 1 plus 2 equals 3, right? Major premise is 1, minor premise is 2, all right, and the conclusion, right, is 3. I'll give you a basic example here. You conclude already, no? You see a person, for instance, now walking in the department store together with another person, man and woman. Okay, so you can say, I see man and woman holding hands. One premise. Okay, after a second, this man and woman call a son who is running away from them. Okay, minor premise. So man and woman holding hands walking, then they called the son, plus they called the son running away from them. Therefore, the man and woman are said to be husband and wife. That is your conclusion, isn't it? So there is a cause and effect. You get the point. There is a logical reasoning. You get it? 1 plus 2 equals 3. So
Three, okay.
there must always be logical reasoning. Now, in symbolic logic, it's just like you try to make your major premise were known, then there must always be a supporting premise, the minor premise, before you can actually conclude. You get the point. In nursing, it's just like that.
Yes.
Okay? In nursing, major premise. Number one, I see the redness on the wound. All right? Major. Plus, and the temperature is 38. Another one, no? Therefore, the patient has, what can you conclude?
Infection.
Has
Infection.
infection. Very good.
Yes.
You get the
Okay.
point. That is
Yes,
the
doctor.
meaning of this. So you can actually, you can easily reason. You can actually find logical explanation. That is the
Okay.
importance of realism, you see,
Okay.
where you
Yes.
can actually tend to explain about everything. And it was very good because it was expounded and proposed by Aristotle.
Hospital. Yeah.
Logic, no? We call that
Okay.
a symbolic logic, no? In
Okay.
philosophy, the
Thank
same
you.
thing, no? There must be answer, there must be explanation of things that you can see around. That is the
Okay.
meaning of this one, okay?
Okay. Thank you, doctor. Thank
Right.
you.
Any other else? Now, for your attendance, please write present in the comment board, okay? Because this is recorded, so please do so. No, then you can leave the meeting. Okay? I have class after this also.
Dr. Gloria present, 32.
Okay, 32.